Mackenzie Johnston with Tri-State Livestock News, bringing you discussions concerning fair cattle markets. Today we have the opportunity to chat with John Schaben. He is an auctioneer and also the owner of Dunlap Livestock Auction back in Dunlap, Iowa. John, will you just tell me a little bit about yourself and your involvement within the cattle industry?
Of course, my name's John Schaben, and I live at Dunlap, Iowa. For those that see this and don't know where that's at, it's pretty close to Omaha, Nebraska. My mom and dad started here in Dunlap, Iowa in the livestock auction business in 1950. I'm pretty blessed growing up in this auction family. It's all we've done. We farm here and we have a feed yard, and my family, my wife and I run cows and things like that. But the livestock auction marketing business has been our life forever. I'm in a partnership with two brothers in the livestock auction business in Dunlap. We also have a livestock market in eastern Nebraska at West Point, Nebraska.
What do you feel are the major issues standing in the way of fair cattle markets today?
Specifically to fair cattle markets, you can't get into one of these things where you're not going to be criticizing a packer. But I'm really quick to point out the packers are no different than producers in the sense that we're all capitalists. We all want to make a living. Now, within the scope of making that living, we're expected to abide by laws. But in relationship to capitalism, a lot of what the packers do, as wrong as I think it might be, is probably not illegal as some of the things that we put out. So in relationship, here's what I say about fair cattle markets. I don't think the rules are fair. I don't think the rules are slanted. And they're slanted to an entity that didn't need the help to start with. Packers and feeders play a football game. They're opposing teams. So we're in the same game, but we have completely different objectives. Right. We do not have the same objective. That this team wants to cross this goal and keep the other team from crossing their goal. And we want to fight and we want to do whatever we can with whatever the rules say to do. Here's where the problems come in. We play a game that's traditionally in the Packers' home stadium. We play a game that the Packers got to hire the referees. We play a game that the Packers wrote the rules for the game to start with. It's pretty hard to win that game.
Right.
Now, one time out of 10, the producers might win just because they did it better, maybe, if they're lucky. But 9 times out of 10, they're going to lose that game. And we're going to lose it because we didn't get to play home game. We get to lose it because we didn't hire the refs. We get to lose it because we didn't make the rules to start with. So what a lot of us are proposing is simply this. The game's not going to change where we play it. This is it. This is the avenue. But who enforces the rules of the game can change. Who makes the rules can change. So simply put, anybody that was around when the mandatory price reporting law came out, it's a great written law. It provides more information for producers to merchandise their product the right way. When the Packer lobby got done with the mandatory price reporting bill, it became a bill that we didn't even like because they changed the rules of the game. And of course, the rule makers that they influence are done with more money than we can. And so when we criticize some of that process, that's what we're criticizing. But again, I'll come back and say, is it against the law? Do I think capitalism is against the law? No. In fact, no cattle person thinks capitalism because we're capitalists. Of course we think it, but we expect the playing fields to be level. And I'm sure in the next 10 or 15 minutes, I'll point out, in my opinion, some glaring examples of where the rules aren't fair.
Well, go ahead with that right now. Tell me where you think.
If you're an independent cow-calf producer in the United States, a simple one obviously is mandatory country of origin labeling. For years, Mackenzie, we were told, that we need to promote our product. We were told that people really care about where their food comes from. We were fed that. We believe it. I do. I wholeheartedly believe both those statements. Well, how can you have that statement and then have the same people tell you that no one cares about country of origin labeling? It's impossible. So it's a consumer's right to know where their product comes from. But let's talk about it from the producer standpoint. It's not fair. The rule's not fair. So we are, in this country, we are subject, and I'm talking about the independent United States cow-calf producer. We are subject to restrictions that are foreign competitors. And like it or not, we're in the same business, but the Mexican cow-calf producer is a competitor to the United States cow-calf producer. The Australia cow-calf producer is a competitor to the United States cow-calf producer. The Brazilian one, same thing. I'll go on and on and on. to all the countries we import from, but do not label. The game is not fair because we are set under a different set of circumstances and a different set of rules than they are, because their country has different laws than we do. Simple things today would be land cost, regulations. We have this country is so industrialized, but yet isn't it great that you can go down to your creek and swim in it? Isn't it great that you can go to a city and still breathe the air? And think about how industrialized we are, but we still get to do that. So some restrictions put on us that are reasonable, we can deal with. But our foreign counterparts don't have those restrictions. They could be production costs at 50% less than ours. I would ask anybody, if you are not the low-cost provider, how do you survive in the marketplace? I'm telling you, and we all know we're not the low-cost provider. How you survive is differentiate your product in the marketplace. My best example is 2 car companies, Honda and Lexus. When they label, they differentiate themselves between the two. And obviously Lexus can sell at a significantly higher price than Honda. And people pay for that because of the perceived quality that go with it. The United States cow-calf producer does not have that option. Does not have the option to price their product higher because we can't differentiate it in the marketplace. So that's one simple example where it's not fair. Obviously, we've had a Justice Department that has taken antitrust and absolutely laughed at it. It means nothing. But Kenzie, I think it's really important to look at. The cattle industry is one little small snippet in our commerce of this great country that we all live in. But in my area here, which is really big in grain farming, the very same consolidation that we see in the cattle industry is going on from there. There's only a couple of companies you get to buy anhydrous from anymore. I'm talking from the top. There's only a few seed companies left. And pretty soon you've got it so narrow at the top that it's not fair for the people at the bottom. And so we see it time and time again as industries consolidate, services dwindle, and prices go up. We see the same thing. As our industry has consolidated, the prices that we're afforded as producers have gone down. And that's why, and I'm sorry, it is so simple, but our share of the retail dollar continues to drop, and drop. We can't survive that model. Our producers can't survive it. If you're an auction market owner in Western Iowa and you have got no independent cow-calf producers, you are out of business. We've already watched it happen to a hog industry. I like to think as myself, but not that old, but I saw that industry right in front of my eyes evaporate. I think as auction markets go, independent producers go with them. If we go first, they go right behind us. If they go, then we come right behind them.
So with what you just said, do you think if substantial changes aren't made within our cattle markets that we will become vertically integrated in the near future?
Oh, it's happening right in front of our eyes. What happens? You drive the profit out of the cow-calf sector. You drive the profit out of it. So if you go to the ranchers and you say, well, what if, heck, let us own your cows. We'll pay you so much a calf, you just run them for us. And just like that, you're integrated. So I had a real good friend of mine say, John, do you really think that's going to happen? I mean, look at all these farms that have cows on it. You think we're going to integrate them? And I'm like, do you realize that every farm had a hog on it? Every farm had a hog. And you drive around the country now and most don't. So we don't need to fabricate an example of what integration will do for our industry. The pork industry did great for us. The chickens did it before my time, or before I was old enough to care that it happened. The hogs did it in my adult lifetime. I'm quick to point out, Mackenzie, we built a brand new auction in 1979 to sell hogs in. We store hay in it today. And we've been storing hay in it for quite a while. Mackenzie, I've used this analogy with a lot of people. Unfortunately, it's times like a plant fire, which I'm sorry, but one small plant fire should not have wrecked one entire industry. That tells you right there there's pretty big problems with it. The COVID situation is quite a bit different. The plant fire is a blip on a weather radar compared to COVID, in my opinion. You know, COVID would be a hurricane compared to that blip on the radar. So if one little blip on the weather radar causes us to wreck an industry, we got big problems. If you want to call this a battle that we're all wanting to go into and we're wanting to fight, 5 years ago, when they repealed country of origin labeling, it's really hard to find soldiers to go to battle because they're busy. They're trying to take care of their farms. They're trying to make enough money to pay their bills. But now we're going to battle. We're not going to have to draft anybody because they're volunteering. We just need to put the masses together, and we don't need to let off until we get what we want or until they integrate us out of business. And I guess we'll find out which comes first.
What's your thoughts about the Department of Justice investigating meat packer pricing?
My first thought was I just wanted to laugh big time. In our auction industry, there are several markets, especially in the Midwest, that sell fed cattle at auction, right? But there's a lot of markets around the country that don't. So I don't know what percentage it is, but I don't know if 5% of the markets in the country sell fed cattle, but nearly 100% of the markets sell cull cattle and bulls. That market has been so consolidated and so lack of enforcement of antitrust. It's all, if it wasn't so sad, it would be laughable. We have got to install some competition all the way through our industry. We all focus on that fed cattle thing, but that industry is infiltrated just as bad.
What's your thoughts on Senator Chuck Grassley's 5014 bill that he's brought forward?
I have great respect for his belief that independent agriculture is what we need. It does not need to be corporate. Senator Grassley proposed a bill, I believe, 20 years ago on packer ownership of livestock. It got smashed by people that you would expect it from. But the theory's right. If the packers own enough supply going into it, it severely puts the producers at a disadvantage. And there are laws on the books that say that that's illegal. What can be wrong with the bill? Well, what can be wrong with it is the packer lobby will get a hold of it and completely dismantle it and inject something into cattle feeders that they wish they'd have never seen in their life. That's what could be wrong with it. For 1 second, I'm just going to hope and pray that doesn't happen. There can be nothing wrong with adding more cash trade. Zero. That people say, well, what about my grids where, I've got high grading cattle and cash negotiate the grid? It can be part of the cash. The packers are going to tell you that they're not going to be able to do this after it comes out, and they're not going to be able to do this, and they're not going to be able to do this. Just like they said, we need to get rid of country boards and labeling because we can't do this, and we can't do this, and we can't do this. They operated fine with it for 8 years. Did they have their way in the marketplace that they want? No. But they had their way. They still made good money through then. So it's a good bill. Now, we'll see where it goes. We'll see what it does.
President Trump made the statement about a month ago that he wanted to terminate trade deals where America imports cattle. What's your thoughts on that, and what's your thoughts overall on trade concerning beef and cattle?
Let me address the second part first. We're going to trade, right? We're going to import cattle. We're going to export cattle. It would be great if all we did was export and didn't import. I get that. I don't totally buy into the system that we have to import lean beef trimmings because we import lean beef trimmings so we can keep ground beef cheap. We're the only industry that gets worried that our product might cost a little more. I think we're the premium protein source on the planet. Why shouldn't we charge something for it? I'm not ashamed to it. We have the best standards, the best product. I guess it's going to cost a little more. I don't need to apologize for what it costs. I don't need it at all. So don't tell me that that's not why we import lean beef trimmings. I know better. Second of all, I have people that tell me that we need to import lean beef trimmings and then say the reason our cull cow market is because it's oversupply. If that's all true, what that person just said, if we don't import the lean beef trimmings, that means we have to dip into our own supply more. If we process more cows, guess what? We got less calves and we get more for them. So it's a domino theory. So that shoot a hole in that theory that anybody ever says it that way, because that's just wrong. That's not true. By importing more, you're not letting the market function the way it is. Importation of live cattle. How great it is for the southern feeding sector to be able to import all the Mexicans at figures that are significant less they can buy their counterparts and sell them off for the same price. Boy, it's a great business model. I can't get by with it. I mean, we can't feed Mexicans up here. They don't work. And I want you to know I'm not against the Texas feed yards importing Mexican feeder cattle. What I am up against is I'm getting to sell them for the same price because there's no differentiation in the marketplace. That's wrong. It should be against the law. That's why we passed a law to make it against the law. And so nowhere are you going to hear me say we shouldn't import. When President Trump said that one day, and to the people that love President Trump the most know that he can say things sometimes that, everybody rolls their eyes. I actually said it. I wondered through the start of the COVID thing, you could see a backlog of cattle coming pretty quick. And if we didn't figure out a way to get them processed, we were going to be in big trouble. We were going to be in the same trouble if we weren't careful the way the poultry and the pigs went through. They couldn't get out of it. Luckily we could. Our life cycle's just different. Open trade, we're in open trading. We trade with lots of people. There's nothing wrong. It should be fair. So fair trade's fine, which goes back to some simple things. And on the fair trade thing, country boards and labeling's at the top of the list. And Mackenzie, our cattlemen's groups have spent millions of dollars to go to other countries with a label on their product. They don't go over there saying, hey, this is a product from we're not sure. I'm not an isolationist. I believe in free trade. I believe in fair trade. So what the president probably said from a knee-jerk reaction was probably fair. And the truth of it, Mackenzie, is our industry's got a few months in front of them to figure out what we're going to do. Unless I don't understand what's happened or unless I've been misled in what's happened, there's a lot of cattle around the next few months to get processed through. And then according to an on-feed report, we should have less cattle on feed, so that's going to help. But then that less cattle on feed number, they didn't disappear. They just got put off a few months. So then we're going to have more then. I think we got 6-8 months here where we're going to have some big numbers to work through. For the sake of the price of beef, we better keep our fingers crossed.
You mentioned the price of beef. Consumers have been dealing with price gouging now for a couple months. The prices of beef in the grocery store don't come down. Do you think we are in danger of pricing ourselves out of a product?
I don't believe that. If you want to know the truth, I don't believe that. There's always going to be a point at some point that people are going to say that's too much. But like I said before, I am not going to apologize for pricing our product premium.
A little bit ago, you mentioned the backlog of cattle that we're facing currently in our feed yards. Are carcass weights going to become an issue here in the near future?
They got to be already, I assume. I can't even tell you the most recent figure and where it sits from a year ago, but I had cattle on the show list. I priced them and had a buyer look at them, and it was 8 weeks before I had a bid on them. The heifers weighed 1,490 pounds, and that was only a fault of COVID. I didn't hold them. It wasn't the price. I never got a bid on them. I never had a bid. So 1,490 pound heifers that would have got sold 60 days before would have weighed 1,300 probably, or maybe less. Yeah, I think it's an issue. It's something we're going to have to work through, but I went through this in 2002. The market got, and people can go look at their record books. The fed cattle in 2002 got back in the 40s. And we would have people call us up and say, can you sell my fat cattle? Now, how sorry is that? I had cattle 200 miles in Nebraska, and they could not get a bid on them at the feed yard. I had to haul them 200 miles back to my auction so I could sell them at auction because they couldn't get a packer to bid on them. So we've been down this road before. The situation that brought this up is just so different. And Kenzie, it's a still big deal. I can't believe restaurants are at full capacity. We know planes, there aren't many people traveling. One of the problems when you're the high protein on the totem pole, you're going to fall the farthest when it kind of cracks. And unfortunately, I think that's the situation we're in right now.
So earlier you mentioned the Holcomb fire that occurred back in August of 2019, and the USDA launched an investigation. Why do you feel we haven't seen any results from that? And do you feel we will?
I think the market reacted a little bit a way that you would expect. People got on the futures market. But first of all, the future market reacted because they know we have a marketing system that's flawed. And so they knew when that small fire happened, they were smarter than I. I didn't quite grasp it at first. It's taken me a while. But they knew how flawed it was that one plant out of the marketplace and one plant that honestly the rest of the plants picked up pace and covered for them. It just took them a couple weeks to figure out the logistics. The traders, that trade the board are not a dumb class of people. And they know that our system is flawed, and they knew that that was going to send tidal waves down the system, and it did. And they sold the board off. Well, the packers aren't dumb. In fact, they're a lot smarter at the game than we are. So they knew as that board's going to chop, they could just chop it down, chop it down, chop it down. They also knew they could raise the prices to the retailers because they had everybody buffaloed there was going to be a shortage of meat. What a joke that was.
Yeah.
There's no shortage. This one's legitimate. There is a shortage. When those plants shut down and in the volumes and that percolated all over this country, that was an issue. One plant that they could cover, I'm sorry, that's a joke. Now we got the investigation going on after seeing the second example of what price manipulation can do into COVID and how it really can put a damper on consumers that have no money. Before, the price went up some. Yeah, okay, all right. Everybody's doing good. Stock market's going crazy. Everybody's happy. Big deal, right? Well, when it happens in COVID, the game changed fast. Mm-hmm. But what I was scared of is, so I saw the words back from the Department of Justice, and they kept saying we need specific examples of basically a price manipulation. So if you and I, Mackenzie, were on that side, they needed an example of you and I having text messages or phone calls. Like I talked you up and said, hey, we're going to raise the price of box beef. You better raise yours up, right? Well, that isn't going to happen. And I thought, well, we're doomed. This is not going to go anywhere. Well, in the last few weeks, a lot of things have changed. First of all, you get the report out that they've maybe put the wood down a little bit on the chicken industry. Now you got the grocery manufacturers jumping in. So some friends of mine and friends I respect quite a bit who do a lot of talking with the attorney generals of states think that it's a lot bigger deal than I think it is. They think they're making headway. From my knowledge, they have called for, they have confiscated phones and emails and records. But then what's really got me excited about this investigation all of a sudden, I am hearing that they are wanting producer testimonies for specific examples that are affecting the producers. And the truth of it is, the Packers and Stockyards Act has laws written that doesn't let the industry has done to the producers. It doesn't allow them to do that legally. It doesn't allow them to take advantage of it. And if producers are able to quantitatively put things down that are going to have a big effect on their status, I think there are going to be numerous examples that we can use. I think we're going to be able to show that country of origin labeling allowed packers to source imported product, sell it for the same price, thus not having to give as much for the domestic product. I mean, I think there'll be thousands of examples. The next question, though, that comes, Mackenzie, is, so what happens? What happens? Let's say they find collusion. What happens? I'm not smart enough to know, but if it's going to be a $5 million fine, big deal. There won't be a fine that they can levy that would even remotely get back what it's going to do. So if there's not fundamental change, then it doesn't mean anything. The fines won't mean anything. And so what do they got to do? I mean, it's pretty easy when you look at the top. I mean, we've got 80-some% in 4 companies. We got to change that. It's got to go to, I don't know, 60%.
Yeah.
We got to take 80 to 60. And then we got to take that 20% and divide it out into 4 or 5 other regional packs. I mean, we have a Greater Omaha. We have a Nebraska beef right here in Omaha, both of them right in Omaha, Nebraska. We need 4 more of them. We need to let the Tama plant go back to being somebody else than one of the 4 that becomes 85%. We've got to do that. We've got to look at Grassley's 50-20 bill. We've got to look at mandatory country of origin labeling. We've just got to level the playing field. Let's go back to being 2 equal teams. I just want to make the rules fair. And I think we got to start it from top driven down. And I hope that's going to do it. But if they're just going to say everything's fine, we just found out that there was too much manipulation in the market right now, and that's all that's going to happen, that'll do anything. It won't do anything. I mean, we've got a fundamental change.
Do you think the DOJ has it in them to actually push forward for fundamental change? Or is this just going to be like you just talked about? Oh, we found this. This is how it is. Things are going to be better now. Nothing really put into place. 3
weeks ago, no. 2 weeks ago, I started changing my mind. Last Friday, I was in Fort Pierce, South Dakota, helping sell for their anniversary barbecue sale. And it's a pretty drive up there, but it's long enough so if you can pass it by on the phone a little bit. And a lot of people on her would have done business with this family. They've been out there at Billings, Montana for a long time, the Goggins family. Joe Goggins is a friend. He is a industry mate. And he also connected enough politically that he can talk to a few people. Joe renewed my faith a bunch in the DOJ investigation. Joe believes that if the DOJ investigation goes through and it does what we want it to do, everything else falls in place. 50/20 comes in, country of origin labeling comes in. It puts it back to a level, fair playing field. I guess why I'm going to agree with him 100%. Mackenzie, I beat the MCOOL thing. I have beat it. I have beat that pulpit. I beat it for 5 years. I have people say, you just think that's a quick fix it. And I said, absolutely not. I don't even think it's remotely a quick fix. What I think it is, it's part of the problem. It's not part of the solution. It's a fundamental thing to show you that producers have no say, have no control in what we're doing. Like I said, it's such a simple issue. I mean, when you ask somebody that has no clue what our industry is about, but you explain to them that we don't even get to label the product that we produce, and everything else we have is labeled, they just can't hardly get it. And it's that way for one reason, because the packer lobby asked for it. And then why I get so upset with my National Cattlemen's Beef Association is because they don't dare cross them. So they went to fight for them. And I know they can give you all the answers, but number one is who's out here to protect the rights of the independent cow-calf producer of America. And I'm sorry, but if we ain't got anybody left producing cattle in this country, then our feeding sector's doomed because there ain't enough Mexicans to bring up here. And I don't think we're going to get enough live cattle imported out of Brazil. You know, they're going to import enough of them, but we ain't going to import Australians to feed. And, you know, the cattle feeder is a generous person. If they make money, they immediately give it to that sector. And country of origin labeling was a way for those producers to differentiate their product in the marketplace, thus charge more for it. And they took it away from them, and now they're just a generic producer with everybody else. And I'm sorry, but you don't have to go to talk to very many ranchers, many cow-calf people to understand it hasn't been a real good go over the last 20-year period. And it sure don't let some young man or woman coming out of college thinking they're going to buy 160 acres and get in the cow business.
So with everything you just said, if you could sum it up into one sentence, what does the cattle industry need most today?
What does it need most? Optimism, hope. You know, there's a lot of us on a crusade right now, and if we get beat out of this crusade, I mean, what are we going to do? I mean, we're going to give up? Because when we do, Mackenzie, the integrators are right there. They're right on our heels. They're all here now. When my mom and dad started in 1950, I am positive that they had many shining days that they had sons and daughters that might be interested in coming back into the business. And they did. And they let us buy it. My brothers, we all have sons and daughters, and we wonder whether we're even going to have a business there to do. We'd like to remodel our facility over in Nebraska. It's dated, could be better and more functional and everything else. And we're like, do we spend X amount of dollars wondering if we're ever going to be open long enough to do it? And I think all businesses suffer from that. But when you see the cards stacked against us as much as they are now, it's hard to find that optimism. It's hard to find that hope.
Do you have any closing statements you want to make regarding the cattle markets and everything that's going on within our industry?
Well, I can tell you from our feeder cattle standpoint, even though our markets are lower than we'd like, through the COVID thing, I have been sickeningly impressed about how strong our markets have been. And I think most auction market operators would say that. You know, where are we going to go from here? Who knows? You know, we're going to have to work through a bunch of calves this fall. And, you know, we're going to have to see how that thing goes when we get there. Hopefully, we're going to be in a better fed cattle market than we were planning. And hopefully, down the road, that thing will look better. In closing, I beg people to keep up the fight. I promise you, we're fighting for you guys. The truth of it is, you know, we're such a group that has been so anti-government. I mean, our lives are so much better if government isn't in it. I get that. But sometimes we need it to work for us. And now is one of the times that we need government to work for us. And government is supposed to be, you know what, for the people and by the people, right? Well, we need it to be for us, but we got to be the by the people. We've got to demand it. And so I really think calls to your congressional people, your senators, your Congress people, I think they mean something. And I think they need to be, I think it's good whether you think your cause is a DOJ investigation, if you think your cause is 50-20, I mean, I think it would be great if we were all on the same page. We know where we all want to be in the end, but don't hesitate to call them. And they tell me that if they get enough calls on one subject, they're going to act on it. So I encourage people to call. I had senators and Congress people directly tell me that. So we believe it. And I hope we can, I hope we can do, and I hope we can do it better. But I think, honest to God, I think this time the odds are against us enough. We're going to need a little help. We need, maybe we, what they always talk about having, football's 11 people. We need the 12th person. And right now the 12th person might be our government. We might need them. I think we do. And hopefully they're going to work for us. And I guess if we won't, then we probably will never have to go argue again, because then the packers and the integrators can do it, for the rest of the people that are servants to them. I know personally I'm going to hate it for me because it's going to put me out of business. And I personally hate that the independent cow-calf people, they've only had to answer to themselves. And the truth of it is, an independent rancher, if you go to a man or woman and you ask them to go ask for help, I mean, that's pretty hard for them to do. And right now I think we do. I think we need to ask for it. We got to ask for some help.